Yeah. Blackjack. Life is like a game of cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Yeah. Blackjack. To play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend. But most importantly, I want to thank you for tuning in, and thank you for helping me move this and get this off the ground. Like I said, once again, and if you really want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please click the bell notification so you can be on point. Let me get right into it. This question right here comes from a brother from Phoenix, Arizona. And the question is, DELRAY, could you tell us about the difference between Out the Gutter Records, Death Row East, and what that situation would have meant overall in dealing with Interscope and Tupac's whole business situation involving Out the Gutter Records? Thank you for the question from the brother from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to get into it like this. Most people don't understand when Tupac signed his first deal, he signed to a record company called TNT Records, which then got a deal, distribution deal / label deal with Interscope, just like Death Row did. And so with that, Tupac came out with his first couple of projects and so on and so forth. But once Tupac had some success, Tupac then basically bought out his old managers, Antron Gregory and all of the guys who really helped him, get his feet wet and get in the game. And so with that, I want you to understand that before Tupac was ever on Death Row, Tupac had his own record label, which was called Out the Gutter Records. A lot of people do not know this. Even when Tupac got out of jail, like I told you before, the reason why Interscope wrote a letter in regard to Tupac getting out of jail, and what Tupac actually had to do was he had to relinquish control of Out the Gutter Records as well as his record contract. Basically, these items, should I say, or entities, should I say, was used as collateral so that Interscope and Atlantic Records could recoup their money from the bail money. So that's the reason why that happened that way. And Death Row was never mentioned because, first and foremost, the deal that Interscope had was with Out the Gutter Records. First, it was TNT, which was basically bought out by Tupac, and then he formed Out the Gutter Records. I'm going to show you the actual incorporation and documentation, the incorporate documentation and the dissolution papers, because it was dissolved after his death. But Afeni and the lawyer that she had represented, they had took over for a minute. So Out the Gutter Records was basically the date of formation was November 3rd, 1993. The date of dissolution was 1999. Basically the May 24th, 1999. As a matter of fact, the corporation existed. It was incorporated in Georgia. Like I said, and before that time, the actual registered agent was A. Davis Kimbrough, and Afeni Shakur was the CEO. Charles Fuller was the CFO. Richard Fishbein was the attorney who represented Afeni in the Suge Knight case, and he was always there basically to help her. I think he's still on the case today, representing Setua in the case involving her suing the estate. Like I said, once again, these are facts, y'all. So anything that you would hear other than that, like I said, the address was 883 Rays Road, Stone Mountain, Georgia. We all know that, where they had the Tupac Amaru Shakur Center in Stone Mountain, Georgia. So all of these things are basically consistent with what I've been telling you guys and bringing you the facts. And so a lot of people, like the brother just asked me in regards to that question about Death Row East involving that. Most people don't understand. Out the Gutter was a registered corporation. It was registered on November 3rd, 1993. Tupac did not sign to Death Row until September of 1995. And that's the reason why I said that Tupac was Suge Knight before Suge Knight was Suge Knight, because Tupac was already doing, not only that, but he owned his own label, but he was actually the star artist on his own label. And then he also released Thug Life once again under Out the Gutter / dealing with Interscope. You understand what I'm saying? And so what most people fail to realize is, they say, well, he was going to start Makaveli Records, right? You got to first understand what Makaveli was. Makaveli was a name that Tupac basically went under, other than Tupac, right? And so he say, well, I'm going to start Makaveli Records. That's just a statement. Until you have these incorporation papers, it's just a statement. You know what I mean? Also, remember, so we're going to deal with two different record labels, right? And Tupac had spoke on his desires to want to do Makaveli Records. You understand what I'm saying? But I want you to first understand that Tupac already had, he already told the Outlaws he didn't want them to sign to Death Row, right? He had told Young Noble that he was going to get him a deal with Quest. These are facts. You can look up the interview with Young Noble talking about that, right? But he also had a group called Ghetto Stars who were already signed with Quest Records. You understand what I'm saying? So what I'm telling you is Tupac was always moving forward, but first and foremost, Out the Gutter was a legal entity in which he was already signed to when he got out of prison. Like I told you, he wasn't signed to Death Row. He was signed to Out the Gutter Records / Interscope. Hence for this letter right here. So now you get it. Because see, you can say one thing, but like I said, the legal and binding thing are the contracts that you sign. You know what I mean? And the contract that Tupac signed, he signed in 1993, right? Dealing with his contract with, the Interscope and the whole nine yards. So like I said, in dealing with that fact, here you have it. So now you got to go into, let's deal with Death Row East. So Death Row East, once again, this is another thing. But Death Row East was a ways and means for Suge Knight to do business with Tupac. If you have Tupac signed under Death Row, if that were the truth, right, then I don't need you to do Death Row East with me. I have you signed as an artist. So I don't need any other, but that wasn't the case. So what Suge basically was proposing to Tupac, hey, let's start Death Row East. You can, run that and so on and so forth. That's a business proposition. That doesn't mean that Tupac is not going to go and do his own thing, with Makaveli Records through whoever he wanted to do it through. You understand what I'm saying? What the intentions were and what actually happened is two different things. What we know for a fact is when Tupac was released from prison, the letter that they had him sign was addressed to Out the Gutter Records, because that's who Interscope had a legal and binding contract with in relation to Tupac Shakur, as well as Tupac Shakur, the artist himself. That was his label. So you understand the facts behind this. Makaveli Records was a thought. Possibly could have happened. We don't know, where that would have ended up. You know what I mean? Like I said, he had Ghetto Stars on the Quest Records. He had, basically said that he didn't want the Outlaws to sign to Death Row. And no, once again, Tupac was the only artist, and as many people as he dealt with, right? He was the only artist that was masquerading under the banner of Death Row. You don't think Tupac could have said, yo, I want to sign him to Death Row, Suge, sign him. And Suge probably wouldn't have listened to what he was saying? Absolutely. But Tupac didn't do that. That's why I said once again, it wasn't that Tupac was trying to leave Death Row. He didn't need to leave Death Row because he wasn't on Death Row. He was under Out the Gutter Records / Interscope, and basically they asked Suge, and what Suge was awesome for doing. Never want to take that away from Suge. I don't want to take nothing away from him. You know what I mean? That's not what this is about. This is about the facts. And like I said, sometimes the facts may be contrary to what you believe, but yet they are still the facts. You understand what I'm saying? And so, once again, so when anybody tells you that Tupac wasn't going to leave Death Row, it's a somewhat asinine statement, because at the end of the day, the proof is he didn't have to leave Death Row. He wasn't signed to Death Row. The benefit, let me give you the benefit, because I think a lot of people that when they're talking, they're not giving you the benefit. The benefit of doing what Suge did for Jimmy Iovine, and basically saying, hey, you know what, I'll look out for Tupac, so on and so forth, and Jimmy and them trusting Suge enough to do that. We know that didn't work out right. Tupac's no longer with us. But the benefit to Suge Knight was the fact that Suge, number one, would be Tupac's manager. Suge, number two, had a publishing company, which was Suge Publishing, basically, in which he could now generate more income by attaching his publishing company to the producers and the writers and the people who would be working with Tupac, whom he had under contract, right? He could now, because nobody over there received any, publishing, as we know from various artists who've told you that, right? So he would now be able to take people like Johnny J, and all of the other people that work there, whom I don't know their contractual, the intricacies into their contracts or whatever, but he would be able to then take his publishing company and attach it now to Tupac, like he did to Snoop, like he did to the Chronic, and all of those things. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the benefit. That's where, basically, so how do I benefit? Your publishing company. And also, like I said before, Warner Brothers gave Suge Knight a new $4 million publishing deal, right? They renewed the deal that they had, gave him prior. And so that was the benefit to Suge. So when people are saying things contrary to these facts, like I said, I'm bringing you, the incorporation papers, as you can see right here. You know what I mean? Here's the information in regards to the publishing deal. And we also know that Suge Knight was Tupac's manager, basically from Tupac's own mouth. If you watch the video that I did prior to the one about the museum, prior to that one, you can see that where I put the information where Tupac said the benefit of having Suge Knight as his manager. You understand what I'm saying? So like I said, and then Death Row East, you get into Death Row East. Death Row East was a proposal. I print some T-shirts up. Yeah, Death Row East, we bringing jobs, we bringing this, we bringing that. Those are good intentions that could have worked out. But the only legal entity, tax-paying entity, a government notified and identified entity with the state of Georgia, as well as the Stone Mountain, right, was Out the Gutter Records. These are facts, y'all. And so hopefully you understand why I said what I said. The paperwork that I presented, once again, in regards to the bail, that's why it was the way that it was. And it was written that way. It had to be written that way. That's why Interscope had the power of attorney. Not that they tried to do anything nefarious to Tupac. They had the power of attorney because they would have to, and with Tupac's approval on a lot of, like I said, once again, if you read the paperwork, with Tupac's approval and cooperation with a lot of the things that they would have needed to do in regards to contracts and so on and so forth, right? So this is how the business worked. That's why I said that Tupac basically beat Suge at his own game, right? Because he signed that written agreement from prison, right? But once he signed that, they came with the real paperwork Interscope did. Get it? That paperwork was with Suge. That first initial contract was with Suge. But once they did that and they, confirmed it, they basically said, well, hey, let's step in, Kenner, look, do this, and so on and so forth. And like I said, at the end of the day, the people who were paying the legal bills and paying the bills and keeping the lights on, first and foremost, was Interscope. So then comes that paperwork that Tupac signed, the legal paperwork stating all of the detailed information in regards to the bail, the power of attorney, Out the Gutter Records, and so on and so forth. And like I said, once again, Out the Gutter Records and Tupac's publishing, as well as his publishing company, were used basically as collateral to ensure that Interscope and Atlantic Records would be able to recoup their money, in which they did. Right? There you have it. And another thing, most people say, well, it was a question asked not only by the brother from Phoenix, right? But there was a question asked by someone else. They said that, well, how comes Tupac's mother sued Death Row? The reason that was because she didn't know. She didn't know Tupac's information like that. She didn't know anything. She didn't know about the power of attorney. She didn't know about none of that stuff. All she knew about is probably what she could find after Tupac's death. You know what I mean? But she didn't know the intricacies. That wasn't her business. You know what I mean? That was her son. And she, probably left it up to her son to do that. So that's the reason why she did that. But the question that people are, or should I say what the people are not giving you when they pose those questions is, what they're not giving you is the fact, ask them who settled the case in regards to Death Row with Afeni Shakur. And it was Interscope, and it was Jimmy Iovine. And why was that? Because that's who Tupac was signed with. And they came to find, and Afeni came to find that out afterwards, because when they had the meeting, basically what was said was, it came out that, with that 18% royalty rate bump up that was in that initial letter that Tupac had signed with Suge, the handwritten one, right? She was asking about the 18%. And they were like, no, well, Tupac was still signed with us. And Afeni was like, no, that's not what that letter said that he signed once he got out of prison, right? You see what I'm saying? And so, but she was trying to go from that and saying, okay, cool. But then they bring out all the other paperwork. Look, this is what really happened, right? This is how we did it, and so on and so forth. So once she learned and they explained to her, they were then able to amicably settle the situation, in which they did. And I must remind you that no one ever told you this also, but nobody from Death Row showed up at that meeting between Afeni's lawyers, Interscope's lawyers, and Jimmy Iovine's lawyer. That's the question you need to be asking, is why nobody from Death Row showed up, right? That's not a bad thing. That's not nothing, a knock on Suge Knight or any of those things. These are simply the facts. Your boy DELRAY, straight game.